Leading off our discussion now, Jill Wine-Banks, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor, Matt Miller, former spokesperson for Attorney General Eric Holder, and Jennifer Rubin, conservative opinion writer at The Washington Post. All three are MSNBC contributors. And Jill, we're going to talk later in the show about what you see as the Trump tweets' effect on the Manafort trial, which is hugely important. But first of all, let's go to what Rudy Giuliani is saying today about the word should is not an order. What do you make of Giuliani's defense of what the president was saying today?
I think it's a very weak defense. And I will also say that it is a question for the jury as to whether should is an order or just an opinion. And I think that when presented to a jury, they would find in the context of all of the other tweets that the president has done and all the other actions that he has taken, including the firing of Comey, that they would find that the word should was an order and that it was intended that it be obeyed. Now, he was wrong because, of course, the Attorney General is recused in this case, and he cannot take any action. But the president doesn't care about that. He said it should be ended, and it goes along with all of his other tweets that have said this is a bad investigation, it's a hoax, it's a witch hunt, Mueller is bad, his staff is bad, Sessions is bad, the FBI is bad, Strzok is bad. He has undermined the investigation from day one. He has polluted any possible impact on a potential jury in any case because of what he is saying.
Jennifer, help us pause for a moment and consider where the country has come. From that Nixon slip of the tongue, and it really was, there wasn't anyone out there who watched Richard Nixon do that who thought he didn't make a mistake and that he corrected it as fast as he possibly could about the guilt of Charles Manson while Charles Manson was still on trial. We've gone from there to now where it is considered absolutely routine that, of course, the President of the United States gives his opinion. Rudy Giuliani said it's a well-established pattern that the President of the United States gives his opinion. He gives it on everything. And Giuliani leaves out that, of course, the President of the United States must never, ever give his opinion on an ongoing investigation and or prosecution.
I think there are three things to keep in mind. First is to remember this occurs during the pendency of a trial. In the past, when we'd had these discussions about obstruction of justice, there was some question, well, does it really count that it's just an FBI investigation? Maybe he's not really interfering with a proceeding under the law. This is clear. It is a trial. He's asking not only that the entire investigation be stopped, but the trial be stopped in its tracks. I can't think of anything that is more evidentiary, and this goes to the second issue, of corrupt intent. That's the name of the game. Evidence that Donald Trump, from the get-go, as Jill said, has intended to obstruct, delay, short-circuit this investigation. And when he says things like this, it's not only that in and of itself is obstruction, but it is evidence of intent. And that, I think, is now so plainly clear that all he has cared about is getting rid of an investigation into his cronies and into himself, that the issue of corrupt intent, which is usually hard to prove, is actually going to be quite easy to prove in this case. And the third thing I think we should remember is that everyone was assuring us that the Paul Manafort trial really didn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. Well, I beg to differ. I think this is the beginning of the end, because what did Donald Trump do again and again? He denied he or anyone on the campaign had ties to Russia, had any communications with Russia. And this is the first time that we're seeing evidentiary proof that that is false. And Donald Trump, I think, knows very well where this is leading. We are going to learn a lot about in this trial, but more so, I think, in the next one in D.C., that Paul Manafort was thick as thieves with the Russians. And for him at that level of the campaign to have those relationships with the Kremlin and Kremlin-tied figures, I think goes a long way towards proving the collusion/conspiracy theory.
And Matt Miller, I know with your experience in the Justice Department, you know that previous presidents have not even been tempted, to make public comments about ongoing criminal investigations and ongoing, currently underway criminal prosecutions. But your reaction to what you saw in the president's tweets today and in Rudy Giuliani's defense of them?
You know, you're right, Rudy. Excuse me, you're right, Lawrence. It is slip. You're right, Lawrence. It is a red line for any president to cross to interfere with an ongoing investigation, a trial, any Justice Department proceeding, or anything the Justice Department is pursuing. The problem with the president, yes, this was an escalation today, but he crossed the red line a long time ago, and he never went back after he crossed it. He has kind of stayed over on the wrong side of that line and has been continuing to pressure the Justice Department, not just publicly in his tweets and in his speeches, but also privately in pressuring them, pressuring Jeff Sessions to back off from his recusal, pressuring Rod Rosenstein in repeated meetings of them where he's asked about the investigation. Every one of these is an inappropriate action by the president. And I think, the defense that Rudy came out with today, I think, is probably the best you could do in this circumstance. But what it ignores is the totality of all the evidence. And the interesting thing, I think the most interesting thing about what he said that has been lost on a lot of people is, he kind of granted that it would be legally problematic if the president was issuing an order here. That's implicit in their defense of saying that he wasn't issuing an order. Well, that may be the best he can do today, but the problem for his client is that the president has issued orders to interfere with this investigation in the past. Let's not forget, the New York Times reported that he ordered Don McGahn to go to the Justice Department and get Bob Mueller fired. So if it's true, as Rudy Giuliani seemed to concede today, that it is inappropriate, legally inappropriate and problematic for the president to issue a direct order interfering with the investigation, well, that's something his client has already done.
Jennifer Rubin, count me as one of those people who still cannot get used to the idea that Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and the Republicans just sit there and accept this, and with their silence, they are, in effect, cheering it on. To see that video of where Ted Cruz was talking about Donald Trump from his heart about what a pathological liar he is, and to listen to the sound of Ted Cruz's silence today remains an extraordinary thing.
It does. And even people who are supposed to be the good Republicans, like Susan Collins, makes these mealy-mouthed statements. Oh, he really shouldn't do that. He should just let the prosecutor do his work and finish. There is no sense of outrage. There is no desire to defend the institutions of democracy. It is if it is all some kind of game, that their highest obligation is to defend him, is to defend whatever political position, whatever Looney Tunes legal argument he is making, and they are completely devoid of any view, of any belief that their highest obligation is to the country. We talk about Donald Trump betraying the United States by, in essence, being, for all intents and purposes, an agent or an accessory for Vladimir Putin. What about these people? They're doing the same thing. They've betrayed the country. They've betrayed their oaths of office. And I fail to see how any of them are fit for office after this.
Matt Miller and Jennifer Rubin, thank you for starting us off tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.